My name is Susan Philpott, and I'm a park ranger here at the National Mall and Memorial Parks. So what images come to mind when we talk about the civil rights movement at the Lincoln Memorial? We're in the spot of one of the most famous events to happen here at the Lincoln Memorial, where Dr. King stood to deliver the I Have a Dream speech during the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. But August 28, 1963 wasn't the first time that the civil rights movement came here to the Lincoln Memorial, and it wouldn't be the last. The first time Dr. King stood on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial to call for change was on May 17, 1957, the 3-year anniversary of Brown versus Board of Education. That was the Supreme Court decision that declared that separate schools for black and white students were unequal and unconstitutional. Civil rights leaders organized the Prayer Pilgrimage for Freedom to demand that President Eisenhower take action because states across the country were ignoring the decision and refusing to integrate schools. About 20,000 people traveled to Washington, D.C. to hear ministers and civil rights leaders, including Reverend King, offer prayers and call for justice. They asked the nation to protect the citizenship rights of Black Americans, including the right to vote. At the time, it was considered the greatest gathering for civil rights in history. But the fight for justice was long, and the prayer pilgrimage for freedom was largely forgotten as the Black freedom struggle continued. The next year, now 4 years since Brown versus Board of Education, civil rights leaders organized another demonstration here in Washington, D.C., the Youth March for Integrated Schools. On October 25, 1958, about 10,000 students and adults marched down Constitution Avenue. Then they gathered here at the Lincoln Memorial. This time, Coretta Scott King addressed the crowd because Dr. King had recently been stabbed at a book signing and he was still recovering. Mrs. King was also an inspiring speaker, and she encouraged the students that day. You are proving that the youth of America is freeing itself of the prejudices of an older and darker time in our history, she said. Keep marching and resist injustice with the firm, nonviolent spirit you demonstrated today. And they kept marching. Civil rights activists organized many protests over the next decade, around the country and here in Washington, D.C. More than 200,000 people demonstrated here during the March on Washington in 1963. But the fight continued. Dr. King was killed on April 4th, 1968, while he was in Memphis, Tennessee, to demonstrate for workers' rights. His fellow freedom workers decided to move forward with the massive protest Dr. King had been planning when he died. The Poor People's Campaign brought people of all races and backgrounds here to the nation's capital. They set up an encampment along the reflecting pool called Resurrection City with the purpose of demonstrating to the country that poverty is unjust. 6 weeks into the protest, on June 19, 1968, Juneteenth, more than 75,000 people gathered here at the Lincoln Memorial for Solidarity Day. Coretta Scott King again addressed the crowd from the steps of the memorial. She said, "It is fitting and proper that we come again to the Lincoln Memorial, this symbolic and historic spot where we have come several times before to present our case to the President, to the Congress of the United States, and to the American people. In the more than 50 years since that day, in the 100 years that the Lincoln Memorial has stood here on the National Mall, people have gathered here again and again to present their case to the American people, to ask for justice and freedom, and to stand in solidarity, in the belief that the United States can live up to its promise to be a nation of the people, by the people, and for the people."